Welcome to the debate after show. I'm Alex Haynes.
And I'm Tiff Lanelle.
Tiff Lanelle. All right, here we are. VP debate.
It wasn't as bad as the presidential debate. I will say that.
As bad or as painful?
Both.
Okay.
Both, for sure. It wasn't as bad. It wasn't as painful. It was bearable. At least we got some policy.
Did you feel like you got anything out of it?
I feel like I got more policy than I did the presidential debate, yes.
One thing that you learned about Mother's husband tonight.
You are starting already. How are you starting already?
I'm always on.
He can hold a fly on his head for a really long time.
Honestly, I think the fly was the distraction that we all wanted. You know,
Yes.
I'm going to use a real black ass example, right? You know, when and this is if you're a part of Black Twitter, you understand these moments. There are certain award shows that we watch together. There's certain award shows that we watch because Black people were nominated. We watch the show up until and only until that Black person's name is called. Most of us leave the award show before they win or lose because most times at y'all white ass award shows they lose, but we watch until they're nominated. I think that was the moment that we all got tonight when the fly landed on Mike Pence's head. Well, I've seen enough. I've watched enough. I'm actually done with this.
I'm actually done with this. That was all I needed.
I'm really done with this. So one thing that you learned.
Nothing.
I learned something. I learned that Mike Pence can lie for an hour and a half with a straight face.
I don't think that was new information.
Well, I don't know many liars that can lie that long.
Trump.
And not break decorum. No, he doesn't ever lie with a straight face.
He will break the decorum. So,
and his face is never straight. So it was born on whatever. So I think that's something that I learned. I also think that white privilege was rampant tonight. If there's anything that I want to call out, it's that. I think that I continue to cringe over and over and over again. We often talk about white supremacy. In some circles, we partner that conversation with patriarchy and just white male privilege. White male privilege is afforded to white men by everyone. Again, so this is one of those things that we talk about when we talk about white supremacy and how it has its roots and its hooks in everything. White male privilege is something that people automatically afford to white men because they are white men. And it happens to by white men, it happens by white women, of course. But Black people also perpetuated. I don't think Kamala was, but Susan Page definitely afforded privilege to Mike Pence, allowing him to not answer any questions at all, allowing him to overtalk her and grandstand during every single point, every single piece of the conversation. There's not one at one point that Mike Pence not grandstand at all. Often he did answer the question. He would say something to the tune of, but not limited to, well, we have a plan. Me and Donald Trump have a plan, but on fossil fuels. We're talking about healthcare. But on fossil fuels, she wanted to ban fracking. It's like, whoa, come on, bro.
You want to bring it back to the topic at hand?
I know that Donald Trump loves the poorly educated. I understand that. I understand that's a tenet of your campaign, and I understand that's who believes your nonsense. What I don't appreciate is being treated like I'm remedial.
But never mind. I will say this. I appreciated that they at least showed more respect for each other. Not by much, but by a little. They showed more respect by little. At least they could, Kamala, congratulations on, blah blah blah, whatever, and
No,
thank
no,
you.
no. You're not gonna do that. No, 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 no.
I'm
Because
trying. Okay?
what that was not was respect. That was
Listen,
condescending bullshit. That's what that was, and that was the total. His total intent was decredit and dehumanize, and also exert his privilege and power and supremacy. Based
right.
in that, like all of that was, and I also wanted to congratulate you on the significance of what your nomination to the. No, it's not cool. And I really understand I had a prediction, and I don't really do imitations too often anymore. It's really what got my ass thrown into detention all the time when I back in my school days. But Mike Pence is literally the embodiment of bullshit, right? So, and I say bullshit lightly. If you're offended by the term bullshit and you rather something else like bull crap, I don't know if that makes you feel better. It's what Mike Pence is the embodiment of somebody that says a lot of things. He says a
And
lot of things and connects no dots. He says a
right,
lot of things. It's like talking a lot, but you don't offer any information. So
right.
I had this example over and over again when people ask me if I was going to watch this debate and how I was going to feel about it, because Mike Pence starts with a lean back. Kamala really would like to talk about how much the American people appreciate what this administration, and specifically President Donald Trump and his beautiful wife and the kids, Ivanka and Eric and Donald Jr., what they've done for the American people and what they've done for the American economy. Not only in this great state of Utah, where these wonderful citizens have welcomed us here for this debate, can they feel the immense power and pressure and wondrousness that Donald Trump has brought to the office? And literally, I said nothing. I literally just went on for a full 60 seconds and I said nothing at all.
Literally
This
nothing.
is literally what Mike Pence has done from the day that he set foot on the stage as Donald Trump's running mate in 2016. He has done this repeatedly over and over and over again. The only time that I think that I've heard Mike Pence speak and he altered his normal rhetoric is when he announced the sixth branch of the United States military, the United States Space Force. And then he said that with such conviction. I wasn't sure if there was going to be a Toy Story sequel, or like I was so confused. And really, after I listened to him and like the condescending rhetoric, the confusing rhetoric. So if he said at least 4 times tonight, I had it down in my notes. I want to go back to the original question.
Right.
How do you have an effective debate? How do you effectively do anything if we keep going back to the original question? How does that help? It doesn't. It doesn't.
I really wanted it to be, Susan at the beginning went through the organization of the debate and how that was going to be and what that was going to look like. And we have 10-minute segments that we're going to go through and, blah, blah, whatever. And I just sat there and said, okay, we'll see how long this lasts. But I didn't appreciate that Kamala had to, first of all, I didn't appreciate that Susan called her Kamala and not Senator Harris. You don't get to use a title with one person and not the other. So while she corrected herself, I still just...
Do you think that slip would have happened if it was anybody else?
No, I don't. I really don't. And Kamala should have not excused her.
That piece.
Don't excuse her behavior. That was not
teaching. What we're not teaching kids these days, especially little black ones, is to excuse themselves when they are disrespected.
Exactly. That was not okay.
You correct that. Period. So I did not like that. I also didn't like that Kamala had to continuously stand up for herself. And I
I will say this. I have had a problem with either the sound people, the production people, or both, but I don't understand why you all keep allowing the candidate. Well, I do understand why. Ratings, but stop allowing the candidates to talk over one another. Turn their mics off. If their turn is over, if their time is up, turn the mic off so that we
now,
can.
Tiffany, that's something that just can't be done right now. That is something that is decided by the debate commission. That's something that they have wanted to do. I think it's something that they will keep proposing. It won't be needed after this asshat is out of office, but it also wasn't needed before him. So I don't think they're going to do it because they do not want him to lose his composure once they cut his mic off. I offer to you, if you've never seen it before, search YouTube. I probably posted it. There's something that happens when people cut people's mic off. Black people, there's an example with Kaya Shimon. Y'all know her, my neck, my back. Her and a radio personality years ago, Portia Fox. Search Portia Fox and Kaya, get your life. It's 20 minutes of bliss because Portia cuts Kaya's mic off. And if there is a more rambunctious version of any, let's get back to Mike Pence. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's talk at the beginning. I asked this question. I was a little distracted typing on Twitter now. Like, Chris Wallace ain't it. No. Susan Page ain't it. So who should moderate the next debate?
Apparently Andy Cohen. That's who I keep seeing that it gets voted in. I told someone today that last debate really should have been on Bravo. I felt like I was watching Bravo.
Did you say whom?
Andy Cohen.
What, for why?
Because this is reality TV.
Okay, and so he moderates the Housewives.
Correct.
I'm sure Donald Trump would be up for that.
I'm sure
I'm not here for it at all.
I'm not either.
Like a list of names. I just tweeted it out. I'm hearing any Black woman. This one, they may as well let Monique do it.
Oh, hell.
If she's like Charm School Monique, that might work.
That might work. Excuse me, baby. You're not going to talk over me or her. Now,
Whoopi, but Whoopi can't handle it.
Whoopi can't handle it.
Whoopi can't, because Whoopi can't even say his name.
No.
She can't even say his name. So
45.
Yeah, no.
Question for you.
I want to know, I need to find out if The Fly has a Twitter account yet. Because I know it's already the #1 trend. It's now trending above the debates.
The Fly is? That's all anyone's going to talk about tomorrow.
Because that's all that this debate amounts to. And I hate that Kamala was a part of something that's going to only surmount to a fly. Yeah.
I literally was doing something on my phone and I happened to look up and I said, is that a fly crawling on his? And how does he not feel that? Like, what? I immediately had to go to Twitter and the pictures and the phrases.
And memes. I haven't been on Facebook. I know that they're crazy as well.
Yes.
The tweet that did it for me, my boy Ron said, I think the fly relaxing on Mike Pence's head just confirmed he literally is the Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead. Someone in one of my little group me chats said, is he rotting? And that's just, like, the fly is just aware and it's doing its job.
So I think, I think if we wanted to summarize, because we can go through some of the questions that were asked. I'll start with the original question, but I really don't think that we can go line by line here because there was not a lot of question answering at all. Susan must have done her homework. She sat and she asked plenty of questions, but what we didn't get is answers. Before I hit the first question, I also want to say something that made me laugh out loud. As Susan asked the first COVID question, and asked Kamala in the first question, if the Biden-Harris administration, in a Biden-Harris administration, what would you do in January and February to curb COVID? She started talking about contact tracing, getting control of the virus, and reinstilling confidence in the people, but most of all, saving the country. Mike Pence said, from the very first day, Donald Trump did what he needed to do to protect this country from COVID. I actually laughed and wept, then took a shot. From day one, like, this is the incessant lying. It's not just the lying, but you're not even just grandstanding. You are lying in my face. You are looking at me and you say, I know that you was a dumb. You almost used an expletive. You was dumb. Okay, you was not kind. You was not nice. You was not important. You was dumb. That's what I'm hearing from him when you said that from day one, because what we know is that day one, when you guys found out, and he was talking to Bob Woodward, he was talking about how terrible it was and how much worse than the flu it was. But the day that he told the American people, March 13th, when he did that, and we can roll the tape, and we're not going to do it tonight, but we could roll all of the tapes. He said repeatedly over and over and over and over again, we have less than one case. We'll never have any cases of the coronavirus.
What killed me was the comparison of swine flu, and had the swine flu been around, it would have been this many. I was like,
for those that are not aware, they like to cite that information about the swine flu, H1N1, SARS. The death toll, we talked about this on the last debate after show, the death toll of the number of people that died from SARS, it's not funny at all. 12. We are at 210,000 and counting. In this country.
With schools reopening, businesses reopening. Leave it to, if you ask Trump, businesses are booming. The economy is booming. The economy is reopening. Oh, okay, but there are a plethora of Americans out of work, not getting lost wages, not getting unemployment checks, not able to get any type of assistance, not able to find another job because there are layoffs. I saw a very heartbreaking video last week of a flight attendant saying goodbye because it was her last flight. And it was a few of her and her coworkers going through that. So at what point do you take a hard look and say, and that's what I say this every show, and I will continue to say it every show. He's got to go, because at some point you have to be a decent human being. Politics aside, be a decent human being. And I just don't understand how you can.
I think what we don't talk about enough, and what we don't hit enough is, as we talk about the number of people that are dead by COVID, and 210,000 in the United States and growing. What we often don't discuss is in context what that actually means.
Right.
Like the number of people that died on 9/11, it's something that we can't forget. We talk about it all the time. We remember. Less than 5,000 people died.
Right.
On 9/11.
Right.
210,000 people is almost 5 times the number of people that died in the war in Vietnam.
Which is just crazy. It's crazy when you really, and no disrespect to any of the lives lost in any of these catastrophic events or wars, but 210,000 American lives, that at least to some degree, some of that was preventable if we had done what we needed to do as a country.
And most of it is preventable. And then the second piece of that is that as we tread towards December, if people were to wear masks, let's just say that we went from, right now we're 47% of America wears a mask regularly. If we move that up to 95%, we can save almost 350,000 lives. We are slated to lose. We've lost 210,000 since this began back in February. We are slated to lose between 200,000 and 400,000 more lives by December. That means if you already know somebody, or you know somebody that knows somebody, it's and in the cases and what I've understood from people, it's either you know somebody that's died from it, or you know somebody that knows somebody, or you know a whole lot of people that lost. It's either like you don't really know anybody at all, you heard about it, or people in your life keep dying from this virus. And that's what we're hearing. And that's going to increase, because just like Mike Pence said 5 times tonight, oh, me and Donald Trump have a plan, and then he changed the subject. That's the same thing that's happened as they've tried to repeal Obamacare, which is actually very popular. Over 20 million people have Obamacare, and they are in plain sight in a pandemic, a global pandemic, looking to rip it away from the American people. The reason they want this Supreme Court justice confirmed is because in 10 days after the election, they have a hearing about the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare. If it is repealed during the pandemic, you could lose your health care, your premiums could go up, your children that are under 25 that are currently being covered could lose their coverage.
It could be made a pre-existing condition.
If you have a pre-existing condition, it may not be covered any longer by your provider. These are protections, whether your state has embraced the healthcare markets and added the exchanges to your healthcare offering at an affordable rate, is a state issue. But we can go back and forth on how it has not helped people. It hasn't been perfect. No one's claimed that it's been perfect, but over 20 million more people in this country now have health care. And this administration is openly, in plain sight, going to court regularly to strike it down.
Yep. Like we don't have more important things to do. And
during a pandemic, I can't get past that part.
I also noticed that Senator Harris was attacked, and really the Biden-Harris campaign was attacked for saying that they would rejoin the Paris Accord. Now, we talked about this in the last show. I cannot emphasize enough the mistake that it was to pull out of the Paris Accord. And again, even though the Green New Deal is not perfect, it's a step, and we need to start making steps in the right direction when it comes to climate change. I don't know how many other scientists need to say it. This is not a hoax. Climate change is not a hoax. It's not something that the left made up or the liberals made up or anything like that. Our Earth is dying. We are killing it. And so I have a serious issue. And again, this comes back to humanity. Be a decent human being. It shouldn't be that difficult to be a decent human being. That means taking care of planet Earth. That means taking care of your fellow woman and man. 210,000 lives.
I hear you. I understand you. Donald Trump has never, ever exhibited the qualities of anything human, let alone a decent human being. He is physically incapable of performing at that level of an expectancy. He just is incapable. And aside from what he hasn't done, talking about the things that he has done, marking applications by Black people for renting apartments on his properties with the word C for color. This is in the 70s, people. This is who this man is. It's who he has been. It is what he has done. The Central Park Five.
Don't even get
me
started.
The Exonerated Five. This man took out a full-page ad in the New York Times, which he hates now, by the way, because they don't give him any positive press.
Right.
Demanding that these men be killed for a murder that they did not commit. Well, Black people loved Donald Trump before he was president. He was in songs, he was in movies. Black people like Donald Trump's wealth.
The wealth that Black people thought he had.
The wealth that
the facade of wealth. He's poor. The big poor. Not little poor.
Not broke. Not struggling.
He's bigly poor. He just is.
I don't know why that's so funny to me to hear it say it like that, but he's like, it's literally, I have a meme in my phone that really expresses how I feel about how poor he is. But
I actually just came up with the perfect analogy of who I've been trying to figure out who he reminds me of, and I just figured it out. He being Trump. I'm going to have to start calling him President Edgar from Men in Black.
All right, I gotta go.
That's it.
In the Edgar suit?
Yes.
All right. Wow.
Because if you think about it,
okay.
Edgar was a giant alien roach trying to take over with his little roach family. And I just feel like Trump is trying to replicate himself in this country and across the world.
What I think is crazy, see, I don't know if I agree with that, because I think what he did, he is a fame whore. He enjoys attention, he enjoys power. And his attention and power have gotten him in very, very terrible situations, dire situations. He's financially, as you said, he's poor. And so people, just like the Black community was enamored, these banks have been enamored because him banking with them, he can say something like, oh, well, if Trump banks with you, I'll put you on the map. They believe it. But unlike you, the average nurse pays about $10,000 in taxes at the end of the year, which I thought that's pretty amazing because I'm like, damn, I pay like 10 times that. The average teacher pays about $13,000 in taxes at the end of the year. I don't know how much you pay in taxes. I said $13,000. I pay a lot in taxes. Bigly. I'm single.
It's always been bigly.
And it's like
I literally saw that number and said $700. I haven't paid $750 in taxes since I think I was in high school.
No, I've never paid that.
Like
in high school, I didn't pay that. In my first job when I was 14, I paid more taxes than $750. I don't care how much you know the tax code. I don't care how much money you lost. How many more times you want to apply, though? It takes money to make money. And you got to lose some to win some. Like, I don't want to hear any of that. $750 is more than people that are still paying Sally Mae monthly.
That's a good point.
Monthly.
That's it.
People that are still paying Sally Mae don't claim to be billionaires, especially when she calls.
You actually have to give the facade of big poor to them. Broke, fi broke. I ain't got it. So I remember getting out of college and calling because my little, you get 6 months after you graduate of a grace period, which doesn't really feel gracious after that 6 months, let me tell you. But I called to say, okay, let's work something out because I just graduated in a recession. So what can be done? And that woman told me your payment is $1,253. I said, "Oh, bitch, you can."
I remember the first time that I realized that Sally Mae called from different numbers.
Listen to.
And this is in the early days when mobile phones just got. Well, actually, I don't even think we had the block option on the phone.
We didn't have the block option.
So there's really no way to block it. And so she would call, and she calls from like Nebraska first, And
Yes.
it's always like Nebraska. It's like,
who's
in Nebraska?
From Nebraska?
And then it goes from Nebraska, jumps to South Dakota, then Chicago. Then I'm like,
Then Florida.
oh, wait. So you going to keep on? Okay, so listen. I ain't got it. They are more vicious than the IRS has ever been towards me. Who can you call in your family? So, I think a lot of people identify with that. You know, if you have ever been fortunate enough, because it's also an honor to be harassed by Sally the May.
Is it? It
or
never felt like an honor.
Her little cousin, Navian.
It never felt like an honor. I will say, in all of the hacking jobs in the world, I just still don't understand. Like, is it Fort Knox over there? Do we need to send a latitude, longitude? What do we need to do?
I do understand. I understand your sentiments. If they can get Equifax and left Sally May alone, I got problems.
What are you doing?
But I say all of that to say, to bring you back to people understand. You see how triggered we are. I paid Sally Mae like the loans that I had with her. I've been done with her a good maybe like 6 or 7 years now. It's been a while, which is crazy because a lot of people can't say that, but a lot of people feel that triggering. It is that maddening. So that much anger that you have towards her, you should have towards the president of the United States that claims to be a billionaire and pays $750 in taxes. But what about Amazon? They don't pay. Listen. All the butts in the world, there's not enough of them in the world to justify the man that calls himself the most patriotic person on the planet, the man that is on a law and order platform but breaking the law by not paying any taxes.
None.
Like there's just no way to justify this. And so if you're if you were on the well, you know, that's American capitalism, getting around the system is the way. That's not the way.
It isn't.
Getting around the system, if everyone got around the system, then we wouldn't have a system. We wouldn't have the crumbling roads that we have.
Listen to me. Our infrastructure would be better. And that's the thing. I have been saying this and I will continue to say this. When you go, first of all, Alex, you and I talk about this all the time. America's not that old. So while America's walking around acting like we all big and bad and got our ish together because we, you know, have gotten away from our British rule that we were under, which I've always found interesting. Y'all didn't want to be slaves under British rule, but then you had slaves here. But don't get me started. That's a whole other conversation.
Also, this whole peaceful protest that you did from Britain, I don't remember reading that.
I don't remember reading that. You burned that bitch down. But
I don't remember reading about the forefathers being peaceful when
they weren't. I remember y'all setting tea on fire, if I recall correctly. So again,
I remember that is the reason that we as Americans drink coffee. Real fact. It's real. Like we do all of these opposite things, not because they're the right thing to do, it's because y'all were mad and rebellious.
I'm sorry, I drink the tea. I like the tea. I'm going to keep drinking the tea. But I just find it very interesting that we really walk around like we're just this almighty, all-powerful country. But then I go to other countries and I'm like, wait, you're bringing the device to my table for me to pay at my table? Well, yes, ma'am, we don't take your card. Well, how long y'all been doing this?
10 years.
10 years. And they're like, oh, yes, we've been doing it.
And then they laugh at you for being American.
And then they laugh at me for being American. I stopped telling people I'm American when I go to other countries. You American? Nope. Now I've got to go to bed.
Not at all. I'm not. The thing is, I think America is 244 years old. Okay, period. 244 years old. There are nations that blink, and they've been here for so long. And so the arrogance, you have to think about the arrogance that we have, the arrogance that we perpetuate. But every great world power has always fallen. They've all fallen, all of them. And it would not be uncommon for us to fall because we had at the helm of this leadership, right? You say the identifying factors of a third world country often are things like non-clean drinking water. We've had Flint publicly.
Listen
We
to
just
me.
literally had a city in Texas that the water had bacteria in it that was a brain-eating amoeba.
When he said that, I literally said, where? Tell the people in Flint that. Tell the people in Texas that. Tell the people here in Atlanta who had to get their water tested because they couldn't figure out what was going on. It's water. So yes, while we should have clean water, we don't. There are many, and these aren't small cities. And let me be very clear, because I know a lot of the focus is on the November election, and rightfully so. We got to get asshat out. That's the major goal. But please, please, ma'am, please, sir, and everyone in between, local elections are also happening. And stuff like what happened in Flint, stuff like what happened here, stuff like what happens in other cities, I could go down the list. Stuff like they're at the Supreme Court level doing voter suppression acts. Pay attention to this stuff, fight against this stuff. You now have to have a signature in multiple states in order to do a mail-in ballot. So pay attention to these laws that they're sneaking under the radar, because it's legit bold voter suppression. And again, it's not just the presidential election. There are local elections that will get to decide something like if you'll have a financial dictator over your city that then decides to cut the water supply and have it come from the river and kill and make tons of people sick in your city. That is what happened in Flint. So all of the elections are important. We have to vote, not just to get asshat out of 1600 Pennsylvania, but also to make sure that we get people like Daniel Cameron out of their seats. Now, Daniel Cameron, unfortunately, has a couple more years in his seat, but pay attention to those elections so that we don't have another Breonna Taylor who doesn't get justice in her case. So pay attention to all of it because it's all important, and we have to vote for all of the elections. And hopefully everyone has done their census.
I want to bring some comedy back into where we were because
please.
Yes. I've got a plethora of suggestions of other alternative people to host the next debate. So I'm going to jump back into that for a second. I said Monique already. We said why Whoopi couldn't do it. And Whoopi would also be like, no, listen. Howard Stern. That's okay. A good one. Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, no.
The comedy. Listen here, mother.
That would be a yelling match.
Actually, I would love to see Samuel L. Jackson moderate a debate with Donald Trump there.
Now I would take it. It would be comedy for my soul. And that's not tea or coffee drinking. That's scotch, bourbon.
I think also I'm unsubscribing from Joe and Kamala's list. I almost did it today, and then I was like, maybe they're going to make an announcement. And they have when you go to unsubscribe, are you sure you want to leave? How about you just get less mail? And I'm like, no, I actually don't want any mail because I don't even know how I got on this. And then y'all text me all day long. So before the debate, Joe was like, debates in 40 minutes. How about $20? Then 10 minutes later, debates in 20 minutes. How about $5? Literally within 60 seconds, I just got 2 back-to-back emails, 1 minute apart from each other. Kamala Harris, if I made you proud, will you chip in $5 tonight? 1 minute later, if I made you proud, will you chip in $20 tonight? Barack didn't even come at me like this. And I gave my little $5 in 2007 every time I got an email. Well, not every time, but I gave a lot of my little $5. I did. I don't like y'all like that. I really don't. Stop emailing me like this. Joy Behar.
Now, I feel close to her being.
No, she'll lose her marble. She can't do it.
She's close to Whoopi.
Sunny has gotten too unhinged. She can't do it.
She's gotten Whoopi a bit much. Who?
Tyler Perry as Madea.
No. No. For a plethora of reasons.
Beloved, Iyanla Vanzant.
Yes.
I don't know.
A gutter snipe? I would love to see her call Trump a gutter snipe. Yeah.
Wow. Gutter snipe. Okay. And I got two more Moniques. People really, really want to see Monique do it. Monique would start with "Hey, my sweet babies" and end what, like you wag mother. You know, she's not really with the Baltimore comes out of her way too quick.
Way too quick.
Worst lie tonight.
I have to pick one. I think one that I found insulting that Senator Harris also found just insulting as well was the I would say implication, but it was a flat out statement that Joe Biden is racist. And I don't remember the other word that he used, but I sat there and said, now don't get me wrong. He has said some things that he should be smacked for. He has made some decisions. He's had a legislative policy.
I think I'm going to play devil's advocate here, but go ahead.
He has said and done some things that lead into and feed the thing that is systemic oppression. I cannot take it as far as calling him a racist. I think he's old and white. And that's just a different type of mindset. So I think because he's old, white, and male, he doesn't
American.
It doesn't click for him that
American.
you can't. It doesn't click for him that you can't say that kids are dumb because of their parents. You can't say that. You also have to account for, repent for, and make amends for, and give remedies for the millions of dollars lost, the families broken apart, the Black men and women who have been locked away for your policy track record. You have to make amends for that. But I can't go as far as to call him racist. But I can go as far as to say he's old, white, male, and American. And he just again.
And here's the thing: he gets no passes from me. Okay, no passes from me. You're old, white, entitled male. Again, back to a point that I make on my show, Unmuted Nation, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Boston Talk. America 44 times has elected old and white. 44 times America has elected old and white. 44 times America has chosen old and white. Probably obviously less qualified aside from the candidates that they've run against. But America chooses old and white. That's what America is comfortable with. So one time we get Barack Obama, one time we get a Black man, one time. And all of a sudden, people are like, oh, we can have change. No, we can't. We have to put Black people, Black women, Black men, people of other colors into seats locally so that people see that they can govern locally. You know, a lot of times people don't even work for Black people, so they don't even know what that's like. They have no idea what the Black leadership experience is like. And then people that have not had it interpret what it will be like through the lens of whiteness. We're not going to talk about white supremacy right now, but this is why I think I'm not really upset about Joe Biden and his racist rhetoric. Because some of his rhetoric is racist. Does that make him racist? No. Does
I agree.
racism mean that I hate you? It does not. It doesn't. It does mean that you believe innately that you are indeed superior. And
Right.
these main white people out here with black friends also believe that they are superior over their black friends.
Yeah.
And as they use their black friends to justify why they are not racist, they indeed show how racist they are as they elevate themselves about my little black friend that they have, right? Joe Biden and the things that he says and the things that he does are a total compilation of what America is to people that are non-black.
Right.
And so what he's comfortable with saying, what he's comfortable with doing is something that was okay. And what I'm trying to communicate to people today is while it doesn't seem like he's anywhere near middle ground of what we need in a candidate, and he's still where he was when he joined the government 50 plus years ago. He got
Right.
elected to the Senate in 1973. He held a seat in the Senate from 1973 until 2008. In 2008, he was elected to the vice presidency. He sat in that Senate seat until January 16th, 2019. For 3 days, he was unemployed since 1973. And on the 21st, he assumed office as vice president. And for 8 years, he held that seat. And he was somebody that people considered to be at the center. So while it does not work for your young ass, and I understand it doesn't work for mine, it worked for people for 50 plus years.
Right.
We're not yet a majority, but there are more people that see him as a centrist, which is why the Trump administration fails trying to paint him as a leftist.
Right.
You fail trying to paint Kamala Harris as somebody that is the most liberal, in the words of Mike Pence, the most liberal person in the Senate. Are you freaking crazy? She was literally a cop. And the way that only resonates with his base and doesn't resonate with anybody else is because we're only dealing with her is because she's what we got. When she was running for president, they ran her off Twitter, calling her Kamala.
Right. Right.
So I say all that to say that Joe Biden's rhetoric, his minuscule rhetoric, what makes him minuscule in many ways, but I'm not offended by it.
Minuscule?
I don't think it's going to change. I think in the grand scheme of the lives of most of the voting electorate, Joe Biden is very minuscule. The main reason people are like, I'm not going to vote because it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, their neighborhoods still feel the same way they felt when they were growing up. Like nothing has really changed for them. Right. When we talk about why black people won't vote on a local level, and I always I must have something. I need to go and just save old Nat, okay? Because I bring this up a lot. Because
you do bring it up
since I grew up in Atlanta, old Nat has looked the same. The people that vote, that live in that area of Atlanta are like, damn, the government don't help. It doesn't matter who we elect. Doesn't matter who it is. It still looks the same. The churches are thriving in that area. They don't do anything but help the Bushes on their little church grounds. There are still, old Nat still looks crazy. And so when we don't see it in our local communities, and then we don't see it helping or assisting or favoring us in any way in the government, in the national government, I understand why morale is low.
Well, and not just that, but again, when you have voter suppression laws boldly being brought back into play, or voter suppression acts and actions, showing up to the polls and, we don't have the power cords for the voting machines. Only 2 out of the 5 are working. And now we in Georgia are like, we don't know all of the polling locations because they're still trying to figure it out because they've moved to the Georgia Dome. We don't know what that's going to look like. So all of the voting organizations are trying to plan as best as possible to cover different precincts and do different things, but our precincts aren't decided yet. So it's really a game that they are playing. And again, I think I mentioned this in the last one. This is where gerrymandering and redlining come into play. And again, local elections, we can't impress upon that enough. You have to pay attention to what they're doing. because they will change your voting location. They did that before. You show up to one voting location, oh no, your location actually changed. And they may tell you what your new location is, they may not. You may have time to get to that new location, you may not. So it's bad. And when you see that, and when you have lived with that, and when you experience going to the polls and not being able to vote because they purged your record, or they tell you they don't have enough paper sheets and they can't give you one. I'm not making this stuff up. These are real stories. When you deal with that, it's very discouraging. When you pull up to a polling location and the line is down the street and someone tells you they've been in line for 3 hours, and you know it's going to be another 3 hours before you even get to the door. And God knows what that line looks like inside the door. It may be another hour once you get to that door, which means you are in line for 7 hours. And if you are now they're calling them essential workers, which it kills me because they weren't essential before a pandemic. But if you are an essential worker and you have to go to work and you're not getting the day, I don't understand why voting day is not a federal holiday, paid, period, point blank. It is a crime. Well, the whole electoral college is a crime, but again,
that legislation has to be pushed by legislators, right? And the things you're like, oh, well, what do I write my congressman about? That
not just right when the pandemic is over or when they start getting office hours again, go sit in their face. And we've talked about this before, and I will say it until I am blue in the face or dead in my grave. You as a constituent have a right to go sit with your congressman or man or woman. You have a right to write them letters, to email them, to call them, blow their phones up. You have a right to show up to council meetings and public hearing meetings. I know some people miss the signs that are on the side of the freeway that will say public committee meeting or something coming up. Pay attention to those. Sign up for, if your city has a newsletter, a text message service, whatever, sign up for those. I get all my city alerts, all of them. I want to know everything that's going on. Sign up for stuff like that. And when you hear someone being discouraged, encourage them. We gonna get through this, but we gotta vote. I'm already hearing people say, I'm not voting because I just can't.
I don't want to hear that.
We cannot afford that. We literally 210,000 lives, abortion rights, Obamacare, LGBTQ rights, systemic oppression, Breonna Taylor, Rayshard Brooks, Jacob Blake. We cannot afford to not vote. It's not an option. Like, this isn't a game. This isn't
it's not a luxury. It's not a luxury. And I think one of the things that I want to point out, and I appreciate that comment, Roz. We collectively go through things. I feel like it's necessary to explain this. Because as Black people, we feel what we feel. We're not monolithic, we know, but the thing is about culture, and I'm saying something, read between the lines. The thing about culture and people that have it, there are consistencies amongst them. And so I'm going to use the example when we lost Chadwick Boseman. It was felt widespread. Old, young, kids just losing it. It's something that we feel collectively. We win together, we lose together. That's how we feel collectively as a community. You're gonna be like, well, I got friends, I got a cousin. My cousin is Candace Owens. I'm talking about the collective, okay? I'm not talking about people that do things for a buck. And so we feel together, we hurt together, these things happen together. You find that in cultures around the globe. You do not find that in white Americans. And so they look to seek out some form of tribalism, and they try to use politics to unite them, but they don't feel. So as we move into talking about Breonna Taylor and the collective loss that we find when our sister has been taken from us by law enforcement, there is no accountability. And it's something that we see all the time in Mike Pence uses this as and this if you need any proof, you're like, well, I feel like I like Donald Trump's charisma, and I like he's not checking for you. Mike Pence, Donald Trump, they're not looking for black votes. They're looking to suppress black votes, and they want their base to show up. So what they say is things like this. He said, well, I mourn the loss of any American. But I trust law enforcement. What are you saying? Like, what are you saying? Are you saying that you mourn the loss of Americans, and you would want us to mourn the loss of you? That's what you were saying. If you were killed unarmed in your home at the hands of police. Like, how do you say that in the same sentence? It was less the same. Like, not only was it the same breath, but it was the same sentence.
Right.
In the same sentence. So you trust law enforcement infallibly?
Well, probably because he also trusts the Bible is infallible, and I don't know how I feel about that, but I don't understand.
Did they call their wives mother in the Bible?
No, they did not. I don't know what type of BNS, BND, whatever it's called, that is, but I don't want no parts. I take one. I don't understand how anyone can be okay with what happened and the injustice that just occurred with Breonna Taylor's case. I don't understand.
Well, to insinuate further, with you not being able to understand, to insinuate that Kamala was attacking the sanctity of the grand jury.
Right.
But we know that nothing but nonsense was presented to the grand jury in the first place.
Right. And someone asked me about this, so I'm going to take a moment to go through this for anyone who doesn't understand the process of a grand jury. A grand jury is normally convened when they basically want to have a special type of case. They want to present the issues. It's differently done. It's not normally in an open court. They convene a grand jury of peers. And then the grand jury is presented with evidence. They get to talk to witnesses, all of this. So it's some of the same processes. However, the wording and the language that's used during a grand jury convening is normally very intentional. So after, and Alex, you and I talked about it, after the Breonna Taylor case was happening, immediately following the press conference, I said, something's not right. And I don't think that he presented all of the charges. And now we know he didn't. But basically what I am thinking...
All of the plausible charges.
What he did, what they did, was present a case, and basically what they can do is narrow it to one particular situation. So they don't have to present all of the facts. They don't have to say, this is the case for Breonna Taylor.
They did.
Period. They don't have to. So what they can do is use language that implies that this case is handling this specific thing.
This is a situation that happened. These are specific facts.
With these specific facts, and the actual indictment or charges for the officers involved in the shooting of Breonna Taylor are being handled by another case or another jury or whatever. But he would have used that language like that. And I'm at this conclusion because he did that in his press conference. He started off with, we only handled the charges for basically the 3 counts. And
Daniel Cameron started off
are being handled by the federal level. So I'm sure he went into that courtroom, and the case that was presented said the civil charges in the indictment of in the charges for the officers involved in the actual shooting of Breonna Taylor are being handled at a federal level. We will not be handling that here in this case. This case is about XYZ. So that is the trickiness that can be in a grand jury convening, and for Mike Pence to uphold that and support that and promote that is asinine, disrespectful at the least. And again, back to your point of, oh, you big dumb, let me just talk to you on big dumb level. And I take serious issue with that. I just do not understand how, and I know I'm not surprised by it, but it's frustrating at this point to hear anyone say, and I mean on both sides, to hear anyone say that racism is not a thing, that systematic oppression is not a thing, systemic racism is not a thing. Like how, why? How do you even begin to come to that conclusion? So I take serious issue with the man that calls his wife mother. Serious issue. And again, Biden Harris is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I get it. We cannot do another 4 years of asshat and mother's husband. We can't. Go to iwillvote.com, figure out where you need to vote. If you don't know how, because that's the other thing they're doing, they're changing your voting page websites to make it harder to figure out your information. So if you can't figure it out on your state's website, go to iwillvote.com. You can put in your information, check your registration status, make sure that you get absentee ballot information, get polling locations, get mail-in ballot drop-off locations, get absentee ballot information. If you are voting abroad, they have that information. Scroll to the bottom and click abroad. Go to that website, get the information that you need, and vote. Take your ass to the polls early. And I don't mean early on the day of election day. Go do early voting. It is so much easier. So much easier. And it will save so much in the long run. It will save some heartache. It will save some time, especially if you can only go on your lunch hour because you are an essential worker. Do early voting. But like, enough is enough. Federal and local levels. Enough is enough. Some of these people have been in office for 50 years and ain't changed a light bulb, let alone a policy. Vote. Period. That's it. Vote. I'm done.
And that's it.
Yeah. That's it on that. So for anyone who didn't know, that is the only VP debate. There will not be another one. The next presidential debate is, I believe, on the
Thursday, October 22nd.
There we go.
So if God's willing,
and the creek don't rise,
and both candidates are still in human form, then on Thursday, October 22nd, we will be here following that debate. If you know somebody that is not, but at this point in a lot of places, it's way too late for them to vote. And this is not like the way that you pay your T-Mobile bill, okay? You can't go up to your Department of Elections and say, yo, well, I'm sorry, is there anything I can do? I'm sorry. The deadline is passed. So you need to get registered so that you can vote in the next election. That's going to affect where you live. It affects everything down to the water that you drink, okay? These elections matter. You need to get involved. And again, God willing, we are here on October 22nd because there will still be 2 candidates in human form available for us to analyze.
Or extra form.
Of course, we're back here, the debate show. Make sure you download the Boston app.
Doesn't he drink sugar water?
Is that the equivalent to eating McDonald's all day, every day, twice a day? I'm drinking 12 Diet Cokes.
Sugar water. And Diet Coke, sugar water. Is no one else seeing the connection? Is it just me? Really?
Do this for us. Make sure you download the Boss FM Radio app. from your app store. Join us here at the Debate After Show on Thursday, October 22nd. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to be going on election night.
Drinking.
I don't know. Can't tell y'all. I can't say whether or not I'll be here, but it is what it is. Okay. Any last words?
Vote.
She
Period.
said it. I say it all the time. Vote. We appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Good night.
We out.